Hello, everyone. I'm making this video because I just got a question from a client who wants to claim the Section 121 exclusion with property owned in a partnership. So, in the United States, if you have, you're allowed to exclude up to $250,000 of capital gain from the sale of your personal residence, and that's under Code Section 121. If you're married, both the husband and the spouse can claim that $250,000 exclusion. So a married couple that sells their home doesn't have to pay tax on up to $500,000 of gain as long as they meet the ownership and the use test. So the use test is basically, was it really your principal residence? Was all your interests? Is that where you worked and went to school and where your kids went to school? Was it really where you lived, your principal residence? And then the use test is the ownership test is, did you own it for 2 out of the last 5 years? So the question, normally people just own their houses. They file jointly and they claim the exclusion. When you claim the exclusion, you don't actually file anything. You just exclude the gain. You do the math on the side, make sure you can exclude everything, and that's fine. However, in this case, and I'm trying to do research on it, and I'm just being frank with everyone, the asset owned by the partnership is a little bit different because you might not meet the use test, right, or the ownership test, because the partnership owns the asset. So I found a letter ruling request regarding the excluded gain, and this was two taxpayers, a taxpayer and a spouse, put their property in a trust and then in a partnership. And what I see here, in this part, ownership of partnership property for a section of 121. So in order for the federal law partnership to exist, the parties must be doing a business. And there's another case reference, but because the existence is based on federal principles, an arrangement that constitutes a partnership may not be a partnership under federal tax law. So furthermore, taxpayers, individually or as grantors of the trust, owned 100% of residence during the period that the partnership held title to the residence, because the partnership held the title, and they have taken no business deductions with respect. Based on the facts, the IRS rules that for purpose of 121A, the taxpayers will be treated as owners throughout the period the partnership held title to the residence. So if you're actually renting the property, you're likely not going to be treated as the owners. But if you owned it on the side, if you owned it and then rented it for 2 years and then sold it without it being in a partnership, you could still meet the ownership test. So the answer is really complicated. If you have a partnership with your principal residence, maybe you can claim the Section 121 exclusion. What I've been discussing with my client is potentially reporting the contribution of the asset into the partnership. Instead of a contribution, reporting it as a sale to the partnership and claiming the exclusion when the property went into the partnership. I think there's a little bit more to doing that in terms of it has to be it's a related party because the taxpayers own the partnership. So the gain would have to be picked up at that time, and they'd have to get an actual appraisal, and there'd have to be an actual contract and a sale, and it have to actually happen. And we could deal with the financial terms after, but that's kind of your option. So if you have your property in an LLC by yourselves, if like one taxpayer owns the property in an LLC and he still files jointly with his wife, we'll go back to let's go back to this one. We'll go to code section, and this is CCH, it's awesome. Section 121. And we'll go to exclusion of gain from principal residence. Me over here. So you can see, you can pause your screen if you want to read the code yourself here. Okay. So you can only do this once every 2 years. Fine. There's something around down here with, actually, we'll go to the regulations, which explain the Internal Revenue Code. And here, principal residence, vacant land, limitations, examples, ownership and use requirements. Ownership. So if it's owned by a trust, the owner of the trust, any portion includes the taxpayer will be treated as owning the residence for purposes of this ownership requirement. So if you put it in a grantor trust under 671 or 679, you can still claim the exclusion. and then certain single owner entities. So the residence owned by an eligible entity with a single owner, basically an LLC, the owner will be treated as owning the residence for purpose of satisfying the 2-year ownership requirement. So again, this is a single owner entity. This doesn't reference multiple owner entities, which would be a partnership. So if you put your house in an LLC, I believe you would still be eligible to claim the 121 exclusion. You personally, would you still get the 250,000 exclusion from your wife? I would claim it, but I'm not. It's not clear here. That has a single owner is disregarded. Will be treated as the owner will be treated as owning the residence for purposes of this. But I don't think that the spouse would. But that's a position you can take. So, moral of the story: if you own your personal residence and you intend on selling it, don't put it into a partnership with your spouse, because it's going to just complicate things. If you need to own it, if you want to own it in LLC for liability reasons, because maybe you're renting it or doing something and you want some liability protection, then it's possible you'll lose part of the exemption for your spouse. But if the gain on the sale isn't going to be over 250,000, then it's not really an issue. So that's basically it. So let us know if you have any questions. I could research this more if you have a specific case. And I hope this is helpful. Like or subscribe if you like the video, and comment below if you have any questions. And do some planning ahead of time so you don't pay taxes afterwards. That's the motto. Okay. So have a great day, and thanks for checking us out.